I have to tell you honestly, since we're all friends now, and we've been gathering in this place for the past 4 Fridays, I got lickings a lot as a kid, but it wasn't abuse. And if you're from my generation, you know that sometimes when you were kolohe or you did something wrong or you disobeyed your parents, sometimes your parents were so upset that whatever was within reach is what you got lickings with. And so I'll just say that I had a lot of toys. But I was so kolohe as a keiki that a lot of the spankings and the lickings I got, I deserved. I admit it. And so you all know that there were times when adults were talking, and I would sneak under the table to listen. And it's still a thing today that's carried on in this family, and we try to impart it in a supportive kind of way when adults are talking. Don't interrupt and don't become part of the conversation until we're ready to talk to you. And so our summers, my summers as a little boy, were spent in Wainaku on Hawaii Island, right outside of Hilo. And man, the stories that used to be told on that table, uh, between the Pachecos and the Lindina, amazing, amazing stories and scary as hell. I had many, many sleepless nights. But today, for some reason, out of all those stories that I heard hiding underneath that table in Wainaku, was one particular story that was discussed. And I think it was Auntie Lucy that talked about it. And the story goes that somewhere in the district of Kamuela, Waimea, within that area, there was a paniolo who was very handsome, very tall, Hawaiian, naturally muscular, dark hair, just rugged features, and all the wahine liked him. And a lot of them wanted to be with him or either marry him. And of course, some of the other paniolo were jealous of him. And he made it no secret that he had more than one girlfriend. I know all of you Kamuela, Big Island people, Waimea people watching now are thinking to yourself, oh, I wonder who that is. I wish you would say the last name. Maybe we related. Well, you know, if you related, no can. So he had many ipo, many sweethearts. Dashing fellow, a bit of a cad. But the story goes that one day a new wahine that no one had seen in the Kamuela Waimea area before suddenly appears. And the handsome paniolo notices her and begins to talk to her and begins to woo her and makes a hakule for the horse that she rode in on. So they were seen quite a lot. And a lot of times they were seen either riding the horse together or just walking up somewhere into the tall grass. It seemed like this had become a serious relationship because they were together all the time. But as it was with this paniolo, he had other girlfriends. He suddenly disappears for about a couple of weeks. No one sees him. No one knows what has become of him. But the person who told this auntie my story said one day she and her sister are sitting on the wooden fence that lines the property of the ranch that they lived and worked on. And they see smoke, dark black smoke, coming up the road. And as the smoke is sort of coming over the hill like this toward where they're sitting on the fence, they see the handsome paniolo on his horse, like this, eyes wide, teeth clenched, just like this. And he's riding. That horse is taking off, and there's dust behind him, but no black smoke, not the one they're seeing. Pretty soon, the handsome paniolo on the horse races right by them. Not more than 2 or 3 steps behind the handsome paniolo on the horse is the dark black smoke. It's coming from the Hawaiian woman, the one the paniolo had been seeing. Except she wasn't riding a horse. She was running on foot, right behind him. Beautiful jet black hair flowing in the wind. Her clothes, they forget what color, because they were mortified to see that as she ran on the ground, licks of flame came up, and behind her, a peal of black smoke. they felt that this woman was Pele herself, who maybe somehow heard about the reputation of this handsome paniolo and decided to go find out for herself if it was really true and what he was really like, and perhaps to le'a, have some fun with him. And maybe things became serious. And maybe in order for the handsome paniolo to get what he wanted, he had to ho'opuni her, to lie, and say that he loved her. And of course, we all know that Pele does not like to lose. But we also know that Pele does not like to be tricked. And so it must have been, the auntie said, sitting at that table that night with all the other adults in the living room in Wainaku village, that Pele found out about the handsome paniolo and his other girlfriend. And she got mad and revealed herself to that paniolo. And when he realized who she was, he must have hopped on his horse and took off running, literally, for his life. And maybe, being so arrogant, he thought he left her behind. But maybe when he looked behind, there she was, right on the tail of the horse he rode. Fire coming from her feet, black smoke behind her. And so, for you handsome paniolo in the Waimea Kamuela area who are watching this now, consider your choices. And consider maybe, if you have many girlfriends, perhaps committing to one. Because you might actually come across one Hawaiian wahine who is more than you expect. There's also a story that happened on Kauai that they talked about. And I sort of vaguely remember the details. But they were talking about some haole person who had never been to Kauai and decided to go hiking. And that haole person, as they described it, became friends with a Hawaiian person in that area of Kauai, probably the Hanalei area, and had heard so much about Waialeale that the haole person asked the Hawaiian person if he would take him to Waialeale to see it. The Hawaiian person on Kauai says, well, that's a really, really big hike, and it's going to take a while, and it's kind of dangerous. Maybe we should wait until Waialeale is clear. What do you mean clear? And he said, look, see how the clouds hover over that mountain? Not good to go now. Maybe we wait till the weather is clear, and then we go. But we probably have to start early. The short story is, they got less than halfway up to Waialeale. And the Hawaiian guide, the person, became nervous and said, you know what, it doesn't feel pono, doesn't feel quite good, so maybe we should turn back. The haole person said, oh no, we're already here, I'm committed, so if you want to go back, go ahead, and I'll figure out a way to get back down. Well, the Hawaiian person said he's not more than halfway back down. And here comes the haole person running up behind him, and then runs past him. The Hawaiian person says, he catches up to that haole person finally and says, oh, what happened? How come you so maka'u? Why are you so scared? And you're breathing so heavy. What happened? The haole person said, I heard you walking up behind me, but I heard you breathing very heavily, and I thought probably you were having a hard time. So was I, sort of. And I figured I would just concentrate and take slower, deeper breaths and focus about getting up there. And I began to talk to you and ask you about your family, where you came from, but you sounded like you were so out of shape that you really couldn't quite reply. And then, all of a sudden, I heard you running up toward me. And I turned around to ask you if you were okay. But you were not there. But whatever it was, the footfall, I could hear it run right past me, run up ahead of me. And then, in broad daylight, I heard the footprints or the footfall turn around on the dirt and start to run full speed toward me. But I couldn't see anything. The second it got closer to where I stopped, I heard more feet, running up behind it, running with it. I didn't bother to wait what was going to happen. I just ran for my life. And the Hawaiian person said, oh, I wonder why that happened. Maybe I didn't look at the moon phase correctly. Maybe today wasn't supposed to be the day to go up Wai Ale Ale. Maybe it was supposed to be tomorrow or next week. I go figure that out, and when I figure it out, then we can go. And the holy person said, that's quite all right. I no longer have an interest. I'm convinced. Maybe I have to do something to, I don't know, make an offering or apologize, the Hawaiian person said. Yeah, maybe an apology. You think that might help? It might. Maybe it happened because what you said to me was one thing, but maybe you intended something else. There's, I don't want to say a Hawaiian legend, but more of an oral tradition that has been written in the pages of books regarding our culture. And it's one that has sort of buried itself into antiquity, or has been forgotten about, or is in some prints in a Hawaiian language newspaper. And really, no one would know about this story unless they were seriously searching about the subject and had come across it. And so I'll spare you the details and tell you. There was Kiha, and his father was Iali Inui of Maui, Pi'ilani. Kiha had a brother, Lono, who treated him very badly, beat him, berated him, made fun of him, made his life miserable. And so, one day, Kiha went to go see a kahuna. But not just any kahuna. This kahuna was the kahuna, or the priest, of the mo'o deity, Kiha Wahine. And he said, I tire of my brother's mistreatment of me, and I cannot understand why this is so. And the kahuna of Kiha Wahine says, it is so because the both of you are in line as heirs to the throne after your father passes away. Perhaps your brother Lono feels that he is the more worthy one than you are. And perhaps, in order to prevent you from becoming the heir, he treats you badly, berates you, and beats you. Kiha says to the kahuna, how can I make this stop? How? And the kahuna says, there is a way. To do this without there being consternation, without there being bloodshed or war. The kahuna says to Kiha, I will build a halipili on top of an imu that I will fire up. It will be a large halipili, and in front of the imu will be a mat where you can sit with your brother. It will be lit by torches. And the two of you will sit in that halipili, and neither of you will move, because something will happen that will prove who is the worthy one to take your father's place. Is that so? Kiha said. And what are the conditions? The conditions, the kahuna says to Kiha, is that you convince your brother to join you in that halipili, and he will. I guarantee it. In the deep dark night, when the two of you are sitting there, express to your brother that neither of you can move an inch, no matter what happens, what you see, what you hear. If one of you is left in that halipili when the sun rises, that brother will be the heir to your father's throne. But heed my words, Kiha. No matter what happens, do not move, do not react, show no emotion. Well, Kiha says, how will I know? It's something like what you're describing. is about to happen. The kahuna of Kiha Wahine says, "You will know when a thin, shining, sparkling beam of light comes down from the kaupoku, sort of like the web of a spider. When it levitates in front of you and your brother, it will be bright. And then it will disappear. And then what happens is up to yourself and your brother." And so the night comes when Kiha and his brother Lono are sitting in that halipili on the mat. Torches on either side. In front of them is an imu, fired up. The fire is glowing under the covers. And they sit, and they sit, and they sit. Soon enough, the long beam of light descends from the kaupoku, shining like a spider's web. It floats there in front of the two brothers, and a brilliant, sparkling beam of light appears, blinding, but shining, and then it's gone. Under the ambient light of the fire from the torches, the two brothers notice that something underneath the cover of the imu is now moving, undulating. After a while, the covers disappear. The glowing fire from the rocks, still there. And in the middle of the imu, they see a naked woman. Her skin is black, and she is undulating, writhing, moving around. And they notice that her form vacillates from that of a human being, a woman, to that of a mo'o with dark, large, black scales. Eventually, the dark-skinned Hawaiian woman crawls out of the imu. And then it begins to writhe and undulate and climb all over the sitting form of Kiha. And Kiha does not move. He does not react. He shows no emotion. Then the form of the mo'o sits directly, cross-legged, in front of Kiha and stares him in the eye. And the eyes vacillate from human to that of a cat, to that of a reptilian creature. And in those eyes, Kiha sees all of the benefits that her worshippers, her descendants, have experienced because of how they malama and feed her and take care of her. In the eyes of this mo'o wahine, Kiha also sees the horrible, horrible things that she has done to people who have disrespected her, who have shown her no godly filial piety. In detail, he sees how she has torn them limb from limb, disemboweled them, ate their insides, regurgitated it, and ate it again. And still, no movement, no reaction from Kiha. The mo'o wahine then crawls over to the brother Lono and does the same thing. Climbs, rides, undulates all over his sitting form. And he does not react. There is no emotion. But then the mo'o wahine sits in front of Lono and stares him in the eye. In not less than a second, Lono screams bloody murder, gets up, and runs out of that halipili. The mo'o wahine sits again in front of Kiha, and she takes the form of a beautiful woman skin glowing with a golden hue. Beneficent, smiling, happy. And then, gone. Thus Kiha becomes the heir to the throne of his father, Pi'ilani. There's a funny little story about the soldier who was stationed in the field. And he said he didn't know Oahu too well, so the only places he would go were the bars outside the base, or the clubs. But he especially loved going to Kemo'o Farms. It was his favorite hangout. The story goes that one night, it's pouring rain, it's torrential. And when he comes out, the rain is so unforgiving that it hinders his sight. And so, when he comes out of Kemo'o Farms and he turns around to hurriedly walk back to his car, without knowing, he bumps into someone standing behind him and nearly knocks them over, but catches himself just enough to hold on to that person, to make sure they don't fall. And he's literally face to face with what he says was a young, beautiful Japanese girl soaking wet. And he apologized and asked her if she was okay. And she said she was fine. But he said the way she looked at him, he knew something was going to happen. And so he said, I decided to be a gentleman and offered to make it up to almost running her over, to take her to the Zippies, not too far away. And she agreed, and we went. Between the both of us, we each had 2 or 3 piping hot bowls of the saimin. And then after that I asked her if there was somewhere I could take her, if she needed a ride. And she said nowhere in particular. And then he asked her, well, there must be somewhere you want to go. And she told him, I don't mind coming home with you. So she did. Without going into detail, the soldier said that the sex was athletic and went on all night until they finally fell asleep. He said when he woke up the next morning, his body was sore. Every single muscle and fiber in his body ached. But it was a good sore. And he said when he sat up in bed and looked around like this, the girl was sitting at the end of the bed, crying. And so he said he scooted over to her and asked her what was wrong. Was it that bad? And she said no. She said, I like being with you, but I haven't been honest. And he said, oh, is there someone else? And she said yes. And he asked her, so was this just a one-night thing? And she said no. She got up and walked to the window, and gazing out of it, still crying, she said, I feel bad about my husband. Guy says, what? She says, but don't worry, I'm a widow. I belong to this club of widows who meet and encourage each other when we're feeling down. It's a very good support group. So the guy says, he walks up behind her and holds her and says, I'll give you all the support you need. And she says, thank you very much. And he asks her, by the way, how long ago did your husband pass? And quietly, she says, it's been 30 years now. He said when he looked at her, it was kind of weird, because he was sure she was at least 25 or 27, and the numbers didn't quite match. And he says to her, well, if you want, I got my second win. I can show you more support. And she turned around and looked him in the eye and said, I would like that. But first, and that's the last thing he remembers her saying. He says, with this blinding speed, she kneed me right in the sternum, dropped me right there on the floor. I hurt so bad that I actually ended up throwing up everything I ate the night before, right there on the carpet. Then she kicked me one more time in the ribs, and I swear to you I heard a bone snap. She kicked me so hard that I rolled away toward the other side of the bed. But there I was on all fours, heaving, in awful, awful pain. And then when I looked at her, she knelt down on all fours, walked up to the spot where I just threw everything up, and it stunk. It was bad. And she licked it off the carpet. And then she got up. And suddenly, on her hair appeared clumps of moss. And her body suddenly developed this blackened mildew all over it. And she reeked of it. She stunk. And I was in too much pain to do anything. I only sit there and hot tears from my eyes from hurting so badly. But she sat down in between my legs, put her head on my chest, wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "I am Mildew Woman. Once you smile at me, and I smile back, I belong to you. I will never leave you. The only way you can be rid of me is to kill yourself." The guy says, being stuck in this situation, I've been considering it because I can't get rid of her. And that awful smell of mildew. There's a story about a kid named Gregory who was having a hard time in life, academically and personally. Things got so bad that he resorted to crime, drugs, petty theft. And so when he was finally busted and it looked like he was going to be sent to juvenile hall, he went before the judge, who gave him a choice and told him it's either jail or you go to a work program. And the judge says, "Let me tell you right now, you'll never survive jail. So take the program." And Gregory did, and he ended up liking it. It was really good. It worked for him. A couple of years later, the day of graduation from the program, his parents went and sat proudly in the audience and watched as all the names were called, all the recipients went up to receive their diplomas, all the applause, all the aloha, all the leis and balloons and celebration. When that time came and all of that was over, Gregory's parents noticed that all the family members went up to every single person as they all left their seats. But not Gregory. He just sat there, staring blankly out into space. So his parents walked over to him, and he stood up, and they gave him a hug, and he showed no reaction. "Congratulations, wow, finally, good, 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 now you're ready for the real world." And all Gregory says is, "Yeah, I have to go to the bathroom." As Gregory leaves, the father happens to see Gregory's girlfriend, Marlo, walking by, her head down, quickly, standing in between her family. But Gregory's father walks up and says, "Hi, I'm Mr. Kenny." "Oh, yeah, Gregory's father." He talks to Gregory's girlfriend, Marlo, and says, "By the way, are you coming over for the dinner after?" Marlo says to her family, "Oh, can you guys go ahead for a second? I'll be right there." And turns to Gregory's dad and says, I'm not really coming. Gregory and I broke up, so it'll be kind of awkward." "Oh," his parents say, "I'm sorry to hear that. Well, okay, take care." The parents say when they finally get Gregory home, and it's a Saturday, Gregory's older brother is there with his wife and the two kids. Dinner's prepared, drinks, ready to sit down and have the family celebration before they have the big dinner. And Gregory says, "I'm really tired. I'm gonna go to bed. And he walks into his bedroom, locks the door, on a Saturday night, and does not emerge till Tuesday morning. And the only reason Gregory's parents know that is because there's a knock on their bedroom door. Mom, Dad. Mom, Dad. The father answers the door. It's the older brother, Ken. Oh, what happened? Come inside the kitchen. The kids they don't know what to do. Kelly either. Gregory, he's kind of strange. Father goes into the kitchen. Gregory is sitting at the table. His niece and nephew across the table in front of him. The older brother's wife. Scared. Eyes wide. Almost shaking. And when the father looks at his son Gregory, he's just sitting there like this. He snaps his finger in front of his son. Gregory. Greg, what you doing? Freak you out, yeah. He stands up, walks back to his bedroom, locks the door. Gregory comes out on Friday morning. He's sitting at the table. A plate of food in front of him. Just sitting there, staring into nothing. His parents sit down across from him. So, now that you've graduated the program, and what was the classes you were taking? I forget. I think was what? Cooking? Auto mechanics? Something like that. So, the program has a job set up for you, right? So, which one are you going to do? Gregory says, I'm not going to do the job. The mother says, then what are you going to do? I'm just going to have Marlo come over and have sex with her all day. Father slaps him right across the face and says, what the hell is wrong with you? You talk like that in front of your mom? What the hell? The mother is horrified. Don't do that. You didn't have to hit him like that. But what sort of freaked out his father is that when he slapped Gregory across the face, he would later say that Gregory's face felt like a sponge, soft and pliable, because when he slapped it, this spray of water came out. And then the smell of rotten moss and mildew. Gregory's head is like this after being slapped. Turns around and looks at his parents, looks down at the food on his plate, and starts to eat it like nothing happened. Later that day, Gregory's father takes his cell phone outside and remembers that he had Marlo's number keyed into his phone and called her. Marlo answered, and he said, Marlo, this is Gregory's dad. I'm sorry if I'm bothering you, if it seems weird, but I have to ask you something. Oh, sure, Mr. Kenny, what is it? Did something happen to Gregory when he was in the program? Because since he's been home, it's been weird. He's been really strange. Over the phone, Marlo asks Gregory's son, Mr. Kenny, where are you? Well, I'm outside on the porch. Can you go somewhere, like in the garage, or maybe take a walk up the street? Yeah, sure. And so as Gregory's dad is walking up the street, he asks her, so can you tell me anything? Because, like I said, I don't understand why Greg's been so strange since he's been home. And Marlo says, it's because it's not Gregory. It's something else. What do you mean? The father asks, and Marlo says, Mr. Kenny, Gregory and I broke up while we were in the program. And he's great. I mean, awesome person, great personality, loved him, but he just couldn't break this habit of stealing and lying about stuff, so I'd had enough, and we broke up. And he didn't take it well. And we usually have these trips where we all jump in a van and we go eat somewhere or, something. And that's just a regular thing that the program does, so we don't get stir crazy. And so, one day we took a field trip to Kaliuwa'a, Sacred Falls. And as we walked up there, we realized we couldn't go because the gate was locked. But Gregory jumped over the gate and ran up there anyway, and one of the counselors went after him, but sort of gave it up because of all of the kapu signs. And so we waited. And then when Gregory came back down, we finally left. What I mean to say is, the Greg I knew was the one that went up to Kaliuwa'a. The one that came back. That's not him. Well, what do you mean, Gregory's dad asked. Was it drugs or something? No, you see, after that he was just weird. He would stare a lot with his mouth open. Or there'd always be this horrible smell. And he wasn't nice anymore, he was mean to like a lot of people. And then there was the other thing. Well, what other thing? Whenever he could, wherever he could. And I always tried my best to make sure that I was never alone in one spot. But he would always find me. And he would... Do I have to say it, Mr. Kenny? I mean, you can figure it out, right? Yeah, Marlo. I think I know what you're getting at. Well, that's what he would do. But he'd always make sure that he caught me alone. You're not back at your house, are you? Well, I'm about to walk into the garage. Don't. Well, what's wrong? Gregory's father asks Marlo. Marlo says, I'm afraid that even though he's not near, Gregory can hear us. And right then, a loud buzzing noise came over the phone, and it hurt Marlo's ear and Gregory's father's ear, and he dropped the phone. And the second he dropped the phone, from inside the house he heard a horrible, horrible scream. And he ran into the house because he heard his wife screaming, his daughter-in-law screaming, the kids screaming. But he ran into the house, into the kitchen where the noise was coming from. And Gregory had his older brother by the throat, up against the refrigerator like this. The mother and the daughter-in-law were beating on Gregory to let him go, but he wouldn't. And so finally, the father had no choice. He grabbed the cast iron frying pan, hit Gregory across the head with it. And finally Gregory let go. His knees went out from under him, and he tumbled back on the floor. The father found out that the daughter-in-law was holding both kids in her arms, had the refrigerator door open, was looking for them, for something for them to eat. And when she closed the door, Gregory was standing right there. And he said to her, "Funny how I can't smell you when you're holding the kids. Put the kids down and lift up your arm so I can smell you." Right about then is when Gregory's older brother walked into the kitchen, slapped Gregory across the face, and then Gregory grabbed him by the throat, pinned him up against the refrigerator. Gregory, laying on the floor, coming around after being brained over the head with a cast iron frying pan, sees father standing over him and says, "You, let's go, right now." Looks at the older brother and says, "Let's go." They drag him into the truck, and they drive out, way past Paradise Park, past that, past the Arboretum, until they get to a secluded spot. And they all empty out of the truck. And by that point, Gregory's father has a large hunting knife along with his older son. And finally, Gregory gets out of the truck. And he stands there looking at them. And the father says, "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you are. But you get the hell out of my son's body right now. Or I swear to God, I'm going to gut you. I'm going to split you open." And Gregory looks at the father and says, "That's a good suggestion. I think I'm done with this body. I'll leave it. But I have to tell you, the place I live is at the bottom of this waterfall. And I've been there for so long that if someone were to empty the falls, he would find piles and piles of human bones, remains. One day, as I was lounging at the bottom of the pond, I looked up and I saw your son. He had something tied around his leg and something tied around a large rock. And even with his slight frame, he was able to heave it up and throw it into the pond. And as the rock sank and pulled on the rope attached to his leg, your son came with it. And the second he entered the water, I felt everything in his mind, in his heart. It was so broken and so shattered, not only by the girl who broke it, but by everything else. He wanted to die. And I thought, what a waste of a young life. And so he let me in, and I took him. What an unusual world this is that you live in. What bothers me the most is the noise. The box with the people moving inside of it. The dark, empty room. When the light comes on, it makes a noise. Even in the quiet of the night at that place where they stayed, there was noise. People talking, screaming, things moving along the road. There was never any real quiet. Even when I was out of the bottom of the waterfall, lounging about, from 2 or 3 valleys over, I could hear an anvil and a topper beater, someone making tapa. But now, I notice that there's too much noise. It's everywhere. And out of everything I experienced, that's the one thing I couldn't stand. Was all the noise. Nothing was quiet. Just noise. Everywhere. Everywhere! Noise! And then it left Gregory's body in a black mucus that poured out of his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his ears. The smell was horrific. And then it disappeared. And it was gone. And Gregory Kinney was himself again, and was surprised to know that he'd actually graduated, that his parents had actually attended, because he had no memory of that happening whatsoever. In 1997, or I think a little before that, the halau that I danced for, we were doing a performance of some kind, at the East-West Center. And I remember that night, my cousin, who was my kumuhula, forgot his pahu drum, so we ended up having to do yeah, by Ipu Heke. I know. But after that, I made the acquaintance of an old local man. He looked to be about Japanese, Hawaiian, and a little bit of Portuguese. And when I met him, he said, "Oh, I like the way you guys dance. I like when Kane dances. It's really good." And then he said to me, and he made it a point to emphasize this, he says, "I'm 94 years old. Can you tell?" And I said, "No, you look a lot younger than that." He says, "How much younger?" And I said, "Maybe 50s. He says, "Oh, you bulai, you. You know I look like I'm 40. And I laughed. I said, okay. He said, "Hey, I know you guys do the ghost stories with Glenn Grant on the Waianae Ghost Tour." He said, "I went before." I said, "Oh, yeah, we do." He said, "I'll tell you this story. I live Manoa all my life, long time. I think it was the 1970s, a little bit before was the 1980s. And my next door neighbor, nice local couple. The husband, I think, is one attorney and the wife is a teacher. And they only have one boy, small boy. And I forget his name, but cute boy. But you know, every time he go too far in the backyard, always the parents call. Come back, don't go too far." And he always come back. That boy, you know what's spoiled though? Good boy, listen. And so one day the parents, they buy him one dog, one puppy. What the kind? The thing looked like an old howly man, the kind dog. I said, Dachshund? Irish setter? He said, "Oh, I don't know, but was the kind looking dog." I think the boy's name was Kainoa or something like that. But one day I seen him in the backyard and he was wearing this, you know, the kind rugby kind shirt, get the yellow and the blue stripe on top, the long sleeve kind. I said, "Oh yeah." He was wearing that kind, the blue shorts, and then the brand new tennis shoes, and the socks was all the way up to the knee. So could tell the parents when just go buy him the kind clothes. I said, "Okay." He said, "So one day I looking out my window and I noticed the boy's dog, the thing, take off into the forest, the trees, because they live all the way back toward the end of Manoa." All right. And so the boy, he take off after the dog. And I don't think nothing of it because, you know, I expect pretty soon the parents going to call him. "I know, I'll come back." But they don't call. I don't hear them call after him. Then I figure, you know, they're going to call. Then I hear him again. "I know, I'll come back." Was the mother. The mother was outside. "I know." And so I figure I go over to the house and tell her that I just saw the boy in the direction he went in. So I walk into the house, I notice the mother walking up the back steps, and I walk up the back steps just as she's going inside the house, and I knock the wall like this. She come outside, she goes, "Yes." I said, "Oh, your boy, I saw him go into the forest over there." He never come back. She looked behind my shoulder like this. I turned around. There's the small boy. But his brand new shirt, stay old bust up, the puka inside. The shorts, all hamajang. The socks, all brown. And the shoes he get, all bust up. His hair is long, like down to the back of his knees. And even though he's small boy, he get this funny kind of look on top of his face. Almost like one man. The mother go ask him, what happened to you? How did your hair get so long? Why are your clothes so beat up? The boy, the look on his face like this, sits down on the steps. And the mother sits next to him. And the old man said he's standing right there and sort of sits down on the railing like this. And the old man says, "You are not going to believe what that boy said. He went tell the mother he went walking to the forest looking for the dog because he heard the dog barking. And he said all of a sudden had this fog inside the forest. And he kept calling the dog and the dog kept barking. But he couldn't see the dog. Then all of a sudden the fog is gone." And the boy said, "He's standing in the middle of this village and had Hawaiian people. And they were dressed funny kind," he said. "And they were talking to him, but only in Hawaiian. And they would take care of him." He said he lived with them long enough that he started to talk Hawaiian. And the men, he could only sleep and eat in their house. They taught him how to cook, how to fish, hunt. And he said pretty soon he had to learn all the pule, or all the kind of rituals. And he was telling the mother that he went with the men up in the forest, and they had to make this kind of offering, and they cut down the tree, and then they bring the tree down to this place that he went called Kalia. And he said had this big holly, and that's where they bought the tree, and then they carve him out into one canoe. He said pretty soon he got older, and he met this woman. They were married together, but he told the mother, not like how we think. And then he had kids. He had 4 sons. He said life was good. He'd take care of his family, and he said sometimes the LE build one hell, and they need one sacrifice. He said that time all the men gotta run, go hide, because the Aihamu come. They take the men. He said usually they take the Kauai. And he told the mother the Kauai is one lower class of people. They get tattoo on top of their head, the unseen. Usually that's the one they take for human sacrifice. But he said one day the Aihamu caught one of his sons, took him to the hell. He no could do nothing. Broke his heart. He said the other son, one day they get on top of this wa'akaulua, this double-hull canoe, and they go and sail to Kahiki because they heard they get ohana. The son never come back. Never see him again. More broke the heart. He said after that, the 2 sons and him, they got to fight in the war. Because now, get warriors come from Kauai, sneak around Oahu, steal people for take back to Kauai, make the sacrifice. So he said he would fight in that war. He said luckily, him and the sons survived. Nobody make. Pretty soon, the wife come old. She passed away. He told the mother he lived to the extremities of old age. And then one night, he lie down inside his hale because he know he gonna make. And he said when he would wake up, he was sitting in the middle of the forest. Had the fog around him, the thing would disappear, He was back in the spot where he was looking for his dog. His hair was long. He had the clothes he would disappear with when he was wearing them. Everything. He told the Mara that's what happened. Mara went cry. Unbelievable. So much detail at his age. How he know that kind? Me, I asked the boy. Oh, well, so what happened to your dog, your Ilio? Never come back. The boy said, my dog got old too. Make. At the East-West Center, a 94-year-old man sits back and looks at me and says, if you don't believe this story, when you see the fog inside a forest in Manoa, go try. See what happened. You guys, I'd like all of you to do me a favor. When you get the shirts, the Mahina shirts that we've been advertising, Ola Ika Mahina, when you get them, could you do me a favor? Could you put them on, take a picture of it, and tag us? We'd like to feature all of you, and also to show our gratitude and thanks. I can't believe an hour is almost past. We got a couple of minutes left, but let me express a mahalo to our friends and family from all over, especially Austin, Texas, South Carolina, Maui, Hilo, Wahiawa, Evatt Beach, Kapahulu, close down the street, Kansas, Alaska, Scotland, California, Nuremberg, Germany, New Zealand, Aotearoa, right on, bro, in the UK, and Oklahoma. So, very quickly, let's all put our hands together, and I just want to say thanks to all of you, and may the gods and the ancestors bless you and protect you and see you to a safe and peaceful sleep. And if some of you are still kind of ike after this, then go shower. Use Hawaiian salt. Mahalo.